And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I am Steve Deace. Fellas, consider this your very first official now that the college football season is over. All right. The rest of the calendar awaits. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, fellas. Don't screw it up. All right, our friends over at Kexi, they've got you covered. All right, with their gourmet cookie Valentine's Day box you don't want to miss. And boy, howdy. I mean, they're calling these cookies chocolate forward. I mean, I'm going to call them send me a box tomorrow. That's what I'm going to call them. All right. I mean, Black Forest, chocolate truffle, chocolate caramel, Dubai chocolate, red hot velvet, and German chocolate. Every cookie is different, everyone indulgent. It's right there in their gift-ready box. The perfect gift for Valentine's Day. Just unwrap and enjoy. Limited editions. These are all flavors I haven't tried. I look forward to getting my box. Hint, hint. Once they're gone, they're gone. All right, so get them now and order by February the 5th to guarantee delivery by Valentine's Day. February the 5th to guarantee delivery by Valentine's Day at Kexi.com, Kexi. Kexi, spectacular cookies, real ingredients. They're incredible. Kexi.com. Use the code DACE for 15% off. Code DACE for 15% off at Kexi.com. All right, coming up on today's show, a very good friend of mine, Dr. Jeremiah Johnston from Prestonwood Baptist down there in Dallas. He is going to answer a question for us. What is it like to defend the gospel at the World Economic Forum? Because he just did that yesterday in Davos, and he's going to join us and tell us about that experience coming up in the final segment of the program. A very fascinating trend line, but are we buying it? We'll get into that for fake news or not. We'll talk about that next hour as well. Remind me, guest at the bottom of the hour, who did I forget?
Chip Roy.
Oh, yeah, how do I forget one of my very, very best friends?
Oh, no.
Let's just pretend that Chip wasn't listening to this and tuned in. You know what happened is you booked two of my best buddies on the same show, and my cup runneth over, and I just forgot about the very first one. Took him for granted. My bad. Congressman Chip Roy will join us here. Thank you for helping me with a live brain fart. I appreciate that. He'll join me here at the bottom of the hour. But let's kick this thing off, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Doubling Down.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male.
Yep, that is former CNN anchor Don Lemon's retrospection over his involvement with that mob of lefties storming that church in the Twin Cities over the weekend. U.S. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon told Benny Johnson yesterday,
"We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges."
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz released, I guess you could call this a statement in the aftermath of that church incident. Quote, "The governor has repeatedly and unequivocally urged protesters to do so peacefully. While people have a right to speak out, he in no way supports interrupting a place of worship," end quote. We also now know one of the quote-unquote activists who derailed that church service did the exact same thing, targeting Pete Hegseth's church in Washington, D.C. not that long ago. Overnight, President Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "Just watched the footage of the church raid in Minnesota by the agitators and insurrectionists. These people are professionals. No person acts the way they did. They're highly trained to scream, rant, and rave like lunatics in a certain manner, just like they are doing. They are troublemakers who should be thrown in jail or thrown out of the country. The first to go should be Walz and fake sleazebag Ilhan Omar, who is supposedly worth over $30 million, even though she's never had anything but a government job. Investigate these corrupt politicians and do it now," end quote. Also, in overnight escapades on Truth Social, Trump posted private texts from different European officials, including French President Emmanuel Macron. The topic? Greenland. Trump heads to Davos this week, where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent already is, hitting the Europeans' mind-numbing energy policies.
We have Europe buying Russian oil still 4 years later. They are financing the war against themselves.
In Virginia, Democrats have a trifecta, and they're getting down to brass tacks. New Governor Abigail Spanberger's first executive action was the rollback of former Governor Glenn Youngkin's action, directing the state to comply with deportation efforts. Democrats have already passed slanted redistricting. They've introduced a bill that bans fair and transparent elections, introduced a bill that eliminates mandatory minimum sentencing for rape, manslaughter, assaulting law enforcement, possession and distribution of child pornography, and repeat violent felonies, and a number of other actions Democrats are trying to get done just in the first few days because they're evil. Quick aside, look who's on the cover of New York Times Magazine. For those of you listening, you probably already know. Yes, you can guess. Yep, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. And now for something completely different. The Chinese released data on the total number of births in that country last year. The number is 7.92 million births. As Penn economics professor Jesus Fernandez Villaverde pointed out, China had fewer births last year than it did in 1776. And finally, the Indiana Hoosiers are on top of the college football mountain, a veritable rags to riches story straight out of a Disney movie, complete with their plucky formerly two-star recruit quarterback, Heisman winner, scoring what ended up being the deciding touchdown on an incredible run in front of his mom, who has MS. After the game, Fernando Mendoza happened while we were away.
Quite possibly the greatest American sports story since the Miracle on Ice. It is very possible. Which means in Aaron, your lifetime, because you wouldn't be born for almost another decade. I mean, when you think about moribund, Indiana was the losingest program in the history of major college football. They had 3 bowl wins, 3 postseason wins in the entire history of the program. And they're a charter member of the Big Ten Conference, the oldest league in college sports. Prior to this year, they had 3 postseason wins in the history of the program. They had 4 postseason wins this year alone. It is absolutely, truly amazing. A roster of 100 guys, only 7 of which were considered coming out of high school what we would call today elite level recruits. Only 7 of which. And in the last 20 years, there has not been a team that's won it all that didn't have a majority of its roster considered elite recruits over the last 4 years. They only had 7 on the whole team. And that guy right there, get used to seeing him. All right, he's going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And I don't know that you and I will be around long enough. We're both in our 50s. Aaron, you will be, though. When you take over, when you and Anastasia are co-hosting this show, okay, you'll be watching him running for Senate or governor in Indiana one day. I mean, it is absolutely among the most amazing sports stories in American history. It is the movie Hoosiers, like come to life, just a different sport, different era.
I totally agree. And it's as if God is giving us one last chance to learn all the lessons I talk about all the time. Fernando Mendoza is not sports bro. Kurt Zanetti is not sports bro. They make the main thing the main thing. They do it for all the reasons we're supposed to do it. They hold tight to the fundamentals. Right now, we could go back. We could go back based on this. We're being told it doesn't have to be this way. Everybody hit pause for a second. Of course, driving in instantly, all they're talking about is Fernando Mendoza's draft status. Moving on to the next. Guys, you just saw a secular miracle. Will you learn anything from it? This really was precious. I agree entirely with what Steve just said. It's an opportunity for all of us to take stock and to smash some idols, because this was good, true, and beautiful. This wasn't an idol. What are we prepared to do? I mean,
his father, if you wondered why he just set the entire game and didn't cheer, it's because mom can't get up and has MS.
Another man in full.
And so in order to honor his wife, he stays seated and cheers with her. All right. And I mean, I compared this to the Miracle on Ice in 1980. The U.S. had not won an Olympic gold medal since something called the Squaw Valley Olympics, which was about 20 plus years before 1980. So this is at least the single greatest Cinderella sports story since then. It's arguably the greatest in the history of American team sports. So, and that young man's, I mean, he's the Catholic Tebow, basically. That's what he is. You're just now beginning to get to know Fernando Mendoza's name. So get to know it well. All right, let's get to what else is in Aaron's montage. I've also been on the cover of the New York Times Magazine. It was in a completely different context. Okay. And it was a decade ago when they still would talk to people like us and had to acknowledge we existed. Buddy of mine, Travis Johnson, pastor down south, sent me his a feature the New York Times just did on him in his church. And I was like, oh boy. I gulped before I started reading it. And then I read it. I said, hey, you guys did a very good job. Because reading the way that this story is structured, this is not the story they wanted to tell about you and your church. You just gave them nothing. You gave them nothing. You guys were disciplined. You gave them nothing. And so they had to tell an unbiased story. So the reasons that I was on the cover of the New York Times magazine a decade plus ago and Marjorie Taylor Greene are dramatically different. And I just want to reset this again to all the young men in the audience. Crazy women are undefeated. When encountering a crazy woman, fly, you fools. Okay? Run. You cannot win. And if you're not married to her and she's crazy in the bedroom, she's just crazy. I promise. If you test me on this, which is not testing me, but all of human history, all right, if you test this rule, you will learn the hard way she's even crazier in all the other rooms. Run. Crazy women are undefeated. Billionaires with names on New York skylines and master bedrooms in the White House do not overcome crazy women. Crazy women are undefeated. And every sane woman in this audience right now is like, well, testify. It's true. They know better than us. Crazy women are undefeated. Run. The game plan you're seeing in Virginia, it's exactly what happened in Minnesota. And I go back to an event I did, keynoting a banquet for the Conservative Caucus in the Minnesota State Legislature. When was that? March of 24, I want to say?
Sounds good.
I think it was March of 24. And remember, I came back and I told you guys how depressed everybody was there.
Mm-hmm. Just people demoralized. And again, these are Minnesota Republicans, so they're already not used to winning a lot. I mean, it was early March, which means winter's just getting started up there. Okay, I mean, these are calloused men. They're used to going up there, when it's dark in the morning and dark at night in the wintry Minnesota State Legislature and taking L's. They've taken a few. And despite how calloused they are to defeat, utter demoralization at what Tim Walz and Democrats had done, which is win and then pedal to the metal right away, do everything you want. And that's now what's going to happen in Virginia. And in a few years, we'll be like, remember when Glenn Youngkin won that one time in Virginia? And we'll be like, why are we spending any money in Virginia at all? Meanwhile, we can't get Republicans to get rid of the filibuster to even pass legislation that would make it way tougher for Democrats to win. And I'll talk to Chip Roy about that here on the bottom of the hour, so just a few minutes. I mean, we can't get them to do that to stop Democrats from stealing elections. So we just have facial ID and voter ID and photo ID everywhere to vote in America with paper ballots. We can't even get them to do that. And again, worldview is destiny. Most Democrats run for office to do things, to do something. Most Republicans run for office to be somebody.
And the conviction just isn't there. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. They're not cowardly. It's worse than all those things. They don't care. Your motivations and theirs don't align. And if that's not disappointing enough, I have even worse news. You're going to probably have to still vote for like every single one of them. Because that's a message I love to impart, right? I mean, I've been the guy the whole time pushing back on the duopoly aspect, trying to grow a show while everybody else was pimping the Team GOP by not doing so. But the reality is, Satan is literally in control of the Democratic Party. And as terrible as the Republican Party and its current construct is, although frankly, I would also think, as bad as it is, this is actually still probably the best it's been in my career. What does that say? Okay? That those things are simultaneously true. But you're going to probably have to vote for a bunch of people that are just not worthy of your vote at all. But it's going to be, it's really because of the conviction of your enemies. And at this point, you're just voting for speed bumps. 80% of the people you're going to vote for are just speed bumps. Just trying to buy yourself some time, man. So buy yourself some time for some promising long-term cultural trends that are showing at least mustard seeds of hope to try to germinate a little bit. Little things like was it the New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian? One of them yesterday had the story concerned that young men are returning back to the homophobia of past eras. Yeah. See, those are what we talk about. Those are promising mustard seeds, but they aren't gonna sprout overnight. All right, we skipped an entire generation here, so we have. So again, I you know what? This is the charge of our generation, Gen Xers. We're not going to be the transformative generation. We're not. We're probably, for the most part, going to get collectively skipped over for leadership. Our job as a generation is to hold the line. That is our job. Finish well and hold the line. That's our calling. As men, we have to finish well. Gen Xer men, we're entering our third act. Our kids are leaving the home. We're starting to welcome grandkids to the home. We have to finish well. We have to be the first generation in 50 years in America to collectively finish well. Because there won't be another 50 years of America if we don't. We have to be successful at a very micro level so that the next two generations can be successful at a macro one. We have to hold the line. We have to finish well in our homes, in our businesses, in our churches. We have to finish well as men. And then meantime, we're going to have to eat quite a few poop sandwiches here and vote for a bunch of people who aren't worthy of it. Because if you don't, this isn't even lesser of two evils. This is literally just put up a speed bump to evil. We're not even lesser of two evils. Good Lord. Virginia, Minnesota, California, they'll just do this stuff overnight. Doctrines of demons kinds of stuff. That's where we are. I hate saying that. Go back and tell 15, 20 year ago, Steve, I'd be doing this show. But I have to live in the world as it is. And this is the world we are now in. So we skipped a generation. We just did. And so our generation, Gen Xers, our job is hold. That's our call as a generation of men. Our job's to hold, to finish well. We're going to reset things. We're going to finish well the way our boomer parents and grandparents have not. We're going to finish well. And then we're going to hold the line. We're going to try to slow down as many things as we can. And here's a new pact. Here's a new pact. You don't get to email me and tell me, I don't want to vote for these terrible Republicans if you didn't go to a single school board meeting in your own district last year. Fair? You don't get to do that.
At the very least.
If you did, if you were there, you went to city council meetings, ran for legislature, if you got your fingernails more than dirty, then if you want to be a conscientious objector, fine. But no, you don't get to just sit there behind an anonymous avatar online and claim some moral principle you don't have while all you did was just stay home and not get your fingernails dirty at all. So we're going to have to be the ones. I detest most of these Republicans, like on a visceral human level, detest them. I just love my kids more. And so at this point, we're just voting for speed bumps with limited exceptions, like my friend who's going to join us at the bottom of the hour. But he'll tell you it's true. He doesn't want to say it right now. But I promise you, put the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around Chip, he'd agree with everything I just said. If you don't believe me, just look at his own actions. What's Chip getting ready to do? Leave Congress to do what? Go home and run for Attorney General of Texas. Why? Because he wants to play offense. He's gotten demoralized playing defense for the last 6 years. Wants to go back on offense. Wants to start punching people in the throat again. Not just sitting around waiting for stuff to happen to him. That's where we are. We have to accept that. And suck it up. You've never taken a crap job you didn't want to do that you thought had no hope and that you thought was boring and beneath you, but you had to feed some people that were depending on you to provide for them. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This is what we do as men. We eat the poop sandwich. Now, I know we're coming out of a generation of men who didn't think they had to do that anymore, that they were the generation we were waiting for. And it was just the summer of love and Woodstock over and over and over again. I know we are. I know. And that's why our generation's going to have to be the reset. So buckle up, Buttercup. We're the 2-a-day training camp generation. That's what we're going to do. And Gen Xers like to get online and talk about how tough we are and calloused we are, and we listen to all that alternative music and everything else. Well, you know what? Here's your chance to prove it, bro. Here's your chance to prove it, okay? So buckle that flannel shirt a little tighter, all right? And here we go. We are going to be the crap sandwich generation. So that maybe our kids and grandkids can pass the Grey Poupon a little bit later on. That's what we're going to do. Or the country's lost. That's your charge. And it's on you. We're the only generation that voted for Trump in the last election. All the other ones didn't. Boomers tied, which is actually the worst Trump's performed with boomers in the 3 runs he's had. We're the only one that voted for Trump. Everybody else did not. So, since we're the ones that clearly know what time it is, that means now we have no excuse but then to do what must be done, right?
Gonna have to smash some idols to do it.
And here's what must be done, okay? We're going to finish well, and we're going to hold the line. And if your state legislative candidate sucks, just run against him then. One more thing. Repeat after me. Nothing matters but action. Let's say this one again. Nothing matters but action. Nothing matters but action. I don't want any more posts from Trump about how terrible Ilhan Omar is and should be deported. Call your own employees. You run the executive branch. You make the call. I don't want any more Pam Bondi stand-ups on Fox News. I don't care about any of that. Didn't really care much, frankly, to begin with. Call me when people are arrested and perp walked. Until then, I don't care, and neither should you. We just don't have time for this. We don't. And this is now, if we're going to be the ones to eat the poop sandwiches, if we're going to be the ones to say, all right, man, we'll dig in our heels, we'll finish well. We'll take the hit. We'll be the generation that takes the hit here. We'll hold the line. Then you bet you are entitled to then turn around and say to those very same leaders of yours, do your damn jobs. Do your jobs. What kind of investigation takes 72 hours when people are on video? It's literally happening. They're identifying who they are. Do you know what investigation takes 72 hours to arrest somebody?
I have no idea.
Someone breaks into your home. The cops catch him right there in your home, threatening you. Well, we can't arrest him right now. We got to do an investigation. Investigation is done. You came into the home, you saw people that don't live here entering the premises and acting out. Investigation, at the very least, if it's not done, a worthy step forward has taken place, if not correct?
Yes.
Enough that some folks just end up in a paddy wagon right there in that instant, right?
Yes.
We don't have to come back. Tell you what, do you sit there and say to the home invader, tell you what, you go home right now while we figure this whole thing out, and then, maybe charges will come later. We'll come arrest you maybe in a week or two. What are we doing? The other side combed through grainy video of J. 6th, looking for every false hip grandma they could find to arrest for months and years after the fact. They're identifying themselves. Why haven't they been arrested already? Do your jobs. Do your jobs. And if you want to come to host and influencers like me, you want us to be team players, you want us to go to our massive audiences and tell them they got to turn out on election day? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing that'll make my job harder. To quote a great movie, help me help you. Help me help you. You want me to help you on one of the largest turnout platforms of evangelicals in the United States of America, this very show right now? And you want me to help you turn out your base white evangelicals? You want me to help you with it? Well, I can tell you what won't help me help you. Is if we can't even count on the Republican Party to arrest the people who invade our white evangelical churches. Can I get a witness on that, Mr. Catholic?
Absolutely.
Help me help you. Help me help you. People should have been perp walked already. Arrested already. Stop doing interviews on podcasts. Start doing arrests. Start doing arraignments. Start doing charges. I'll hold the line. I'll eat the poop sandwich for my kids and yours, and vote for a bunch of people I can't stand who don't deserve it, simply because the other side is a satanic front. I'll swallow the bile and the pride and my own ego and hate it the whole time I'm doing it, but because I love the people I'm doing it for more than I hate that fact, I'll do it. That's my job as a man, as a leader, as a disciple. That's my job. That's what my God asks of me, because he's eaten more than enough, you know what sandwiches, for me. More than I can calculate. So it's the least I could do in return. My life is not my own. I was bought at a high price. But if you then want me to go out and evangelize others to do the same, help me help you. Help me help you. Because I kind of think the worst possible turn out the vote message you could possibly hand somebody like me is, we're following procedures, but no one's been arrested yet for a literal church invasion. Help me help you. I mean, if you're not going to punish people who are literally threatening us and making our children and women run and flee from church, I'm not sure what I have to sell anybody at that point. I just don't know what it is. So help me help you. And do your damn jobs.
The Steve Deace Show.
Folks, January is Sanctity of Life Month, and what better way to recognize that than to support our friends over at Preborn. They're celebrating 20 years of saving babies. Who knows, there could be a moment right now that you can save a life for as little as $28. You can fund an ultrasound that doubles the chance at a baby's life by convicting mom in her conscience she cannot go through with the murder of her own child. And who knows, maybe even doubles mom's chance at eternal life by not making the kind of mistake that can sear a conscience and harden a heart. All right? So, I mean, what else could you spend $28 on today? than a chance to save a life. Maybe there are people of means in this audience. You could do a lot more. Whatever it is, it's tax deductible. It's to a 5-star charity, and it's to an organization we've been proud to partner with going on. I think this is our 3rd or 4th year of working with Preborn here on The Blaze. All right, so get started today at preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve. And we welcome in one of my besties, Congressman Chip Roy from the great state of Texas. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Doing great, Steve. We had to watch the national championship game on my flight back to DC last night as it was cutting in and out. But it was, three straight ones for the Big Ten for you guys.
It's amazing what happens when everybody starts getting paid above board, and now car lot owners in the South that called boosters aren't actually in control of the sport anymore. It's amazing. Weird.
Well, we could have a whole long series on NIL and what we need to do there. I mean, the average age of Indiana is older than the Green Bay Packers.
That
right?
is true, too.
There's a lot going on and all that, but it was a fun game to watch. Mendoza's class act, and what the coach did was pretty phenomenal. So it was fun to watch.
All right, let's get to what is and isn't going to happen now there in D.C., okay? Yesterday in Virginia, Democrats took over officially in the state. And, I mean, they just went ahead and just tore the brake right out of the vehicle and just went pedal to the metal and said, we're going to turn this thing into California overnight. We're going to give a haven to every illegal, release every criminal we can, and steal every vote that we can. This exact same pattern took a hold in Minnesota when Tim Walz and his crew won in that state. All right, they did everything they could to make it California almost overnight. Okay, and so our people, Chip, they're seeing this, and they're like, okay, but we can't even pass an act that would make it way harder for Democrats to steal elections, which is your act, by the way, the SAVE Act. We can't pass that would make it way harder. I mean, we can't want these Republicans to win more than they want to win, right? So let's start with that contrast there, and what are realistic expectations of what you guys can get done there with the state of your colleagues right now?
Well, Steve, as usual, you just summarized it very well. We have Democrats who are on offense. They are always on offense. They are particularly on offense right now. You see they are acting with absolute impunity in Minneapolis, marching into churches in St. Paul, unforgivably going in and just, not just disrupting, but threatening people in a religious worship in a church. You see what's happening now in Virginia, you just point out, and that's a big deal. I mean, we can't just sleep on how bad and how radical that is. This is the cradle of, the American Republic, right? I mean, the history is so rich and deep there. And, I spent some years of my life going to school at the University of Virginia and living in Richmond and working there. And I was there during the time when we were shifting Virginia towards conservative Republicans, right? We had George Allen, the election in 1993, and we were converting Virginia. And now to watch it go straight up Marxist tells you everything you need to know. And now let's go look at what Republicans are doing in response. We are sitting around and whining about the filibuster. Oh, well, we don't have the votes and we can't get this done. Well, we can only do this, and then these back and forth where we literally have legislation right now that we have passed out of the House of Representatives. You alluded to it, the SAVE Act. You've heard the president say we must get it signed into law. You've heard Elon Musk championing the SAVE Act. You've heard virtually every Republican talking about the SAVE Act. I drafted that bill in the middle of the president's election in 24 because I was worried about what we needed to do. We passed it out of the House. Chuck Schumer jammed it up, and we need to move it through the Senate. And we can do that. Mike Lee has been very good going out and talking about this issue. I've leaned into this issue. We can force the Senate to have to talk if they want to shut the Senate down. In other words, right now, they say, the threshold's 60. That's not true. If you have 51 people on the floor of the Senate doing their job, they can demand a vote on any measure. If people want to filibuster, they can, but they'll have to stand up and talk and keep talking. You have to force a talking filibuster. The only thing between us and passing any measure at 51 votes in the Senate is the will to do it and having the 51 votes. We should pass the SAVE Act. We should pass codification of all of the border measures that the president's put in place, which we put into the bill. Remember, H.R. 2 in the last Congress. The House should pass H.R. 2 again this Congress. We should send it to the Senate. And then we should force the Senate to either individually or package together the SAVE Act, H.R. 2, i.e. border security, codification of the Trump border policies, and other common sense measures like banning a central bank digital currency, where the tyrants could track your purchases and block your purchases. We can codify these things to save America from a future Biden regime or a future, God forbid, Mamdani type regime. You've got to codify these things, and we can do it, but you got to have the willpower to do it.
Explain to our audience people who have never gone to work one day on Capitol Hill, as you have the last few years. Can you walk them through why their Republican senator would not do everything you just said? Now you guys are offering them an option to retain their precious filibuster, but all you've got to do now is actually do the filibustering, which is what we demanded for the first 200 years of that rule, right? Now, so we're just going to go back to the way things were before. Hey, if you really want to stand up in front of the American people and stall the entirety of American governance over this one issue because you believe so singularly in it or against it, you're welcome to do that, but we're going to make you do it and make you show that, right? I mean, why would anybody be against that on our side? Explain that to our audience, because there's literally tens of thousands of people tuned in right now. This blows their minds, and they voted for many of the senators that you're talking about.
Well, I could give you a 2-hour answer, but for the sake of your show, the roughly 3 or 4 minute answer is this. Over history, senators have been reserved to want to be able to move something through the floor of the Senate. And they've been proud of this notion of, quote, the cooling saucer. Now, look, Steve, I have too, okay? I actually like that you can slow things down in the Senate because most legislation is bad, okay? So that's why having this dance about, look, if you want to stand on the floor of the Senate and speak out on a measure and slow it down, and there are multiple senators that want to do that, that's actually an important part of our legislative process. But Republicans can't allow Democrats to just say there's a 60-vote threshold and stop the common sense measures. The real truth, and my friend Rachel Bavard talks about this a lot, if you know Rachel will point out, and I've pointed out, it's laziness and or we don't have 51 Republicans. There's no good reason for us not to have universal Republican support for the SAVE Act. Remember that the SAVE Act simply says that only American citizens should vote in American elections. It has common sense procedures to allow you to demonstrate your citizenship the next time you go register and change your vote or you get married or whatever. It's not a big burden, but it does require that to be done so you guarantee citizenship. Side note, I wanted to include a federal voter ID in my version of the SAVE Act 2 years ago. I was convinced not to not confuse the political issues. But as has borne out, I was right. They are necessarily kind of tied or joined at the hip. So I think we in the House should take the SAVE Act, which has all the procedures to require proof of citizenship to register to vote. We should add to it a true voter ID, i.e. you have to show voter identification when you go vote on Election Day, and put those together, send it to the Senate, and then force John Thune to put the bill on the floor, to force 51 Republicans to the floor of the Senate, make them sit there, and then make Democrats stand up at the mic and explain to the American people why they don't want voter ID. It's an 80% issue. We should welcome it. We should want it. And if every United States senator who's a Republican, who's campaigned on, we need election integrity, then force the question. I believe they'll vote for it if we force the question. John Thune just has to put it on the floor, force us to have a quorum, 51, and then force Democrats to speak until they run out of gas or lose the issue.
Probably 99% of this audience is nodding their head in agreement right now.
Correct.
So what can they do anything? Because here's the thing I don't want them to do. Hey, take time out of your schedule you don't have just to pee into the wind. Cast pearls into swine, right? So if, would they listen to their own constituents? Are they that embedded into their own stodginess that the concerns of the country are just irrelevant to them at this point? Or would they, what can our audience do? That's just a very simple common sense solution to all this.
No, I agree. Let's remember what we're talking about here on this issue, to your point, that 99% agree. I really, truly think it's an 80% issue across ideologies. And I think that it's worth pushing because we've got a lot of momentum. The president has demanded it. Scott Pressler's going door to door across the Hill. Elon Musk is hitting it every single day. We've seen some movement. We've seen some signs in the Senate that they're saying, hey, Majority Leader Thune, you've got to move it. This is one we need to hit and hit hard. And I also think that issue of codifying the border stuff, let's remember, we had a secure border in December of 2020 and January of 21. Biden Mayorkas come in, and what happens? All hell breaks loose because they engage in catch and release, they abuse parole, they abuse asylum, release literally millions of people into our communities. And now we're trying to remove a lot of those people, and the left is fighting us. They're fighting our own law enforcement, literally fighting ICE, who have a constitutional and legal duty to enforce the law. We should codify those border security measures and package that along with the SAVE Act. It's all kind of the same stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Only American citizens vote in American elections. Only American citizens vote. Only American citizens should be getting, for example, benefits, any kind of benefits. We should put that into that bill. We should make sure that only American citizens or our invited legal guests are present in the United States. Again, same concepts. Let's put all that together in a package. Let's force Democrats to fight us on the floor. So if you're listening to this, you should demand that. This is the sovereignty package. Do you believe in America or don't you? I think we should force that question. And if we do, I think we'll have a strong midterm. If we don't, I think the American people are going to start turning away, saying, why bother? Because I'm watching no Democrat get arrested after St. Paul and the church. I'm watching no Democrat get arrested after targeting American citizens, members of Congress, with their thuggish tactics through Jack Smith and what they were doing and getting data through Arctic Frost and otherwise. They're watching no arrests, but they watched 1,000 or 1,200. What's the number of arrests after January 6th and targeting President Trump? I mean, they took President Trump in, right? The American people are going, are you guys going to fight back? And passing the big, beautiful bill, fine. Passing some other legislation like the SUE Act as part of the bill last year on the Lake and Riley Act to allow states to sue the federal government to enforce border security, great. But the American people are demanding action. Save our country. Secure the border. Only citizens vote. Common sense stuff. And I think we've got to act quickly if we want to inspire the American people to show up in the midterms.
And then very quickly on the filibuster point, because several of their senators are going to respond, well, the Democrats, will repeal if we get rid of the filibuster, look what the Democrats will do, as if they won't just repeal it themselves if they win next year anyway in the Senate. But that notwithstanding, you're now no longer asking them to do that. Just go back to the actual filibuster then. They've got to stand up and hold court with the American people and tell them, hey, illegal aliens should be able to vote in our elections, and we're going to shut down the entire government here in the U.S. Senate until you guys agree with us on that. Make them do that then.
Yeah, Steve, look, I've defended the filibuster in the past. If you ask me today, I think you have to move past the filibuster to advance an agenda to try to save the country, because the radical left is about to kill the country if we don't act quickly. So I would move aggressively. I don't think they've got the votes to do that in the Senate. But it is totally indefensible for them not to do what you just described and what I've tried to describe here. End the fake filibuster. End what Mike Lee calls the zombie filibuster, where it's just you plod along assuming 60 votes. We don't have to do that. 51 Republican senators go to the floor of the Senate and fight for their country. And if they do that and force Democrats to fight them on the floor, take the message to the people, or win or lose. But you know what? I'd like that fight. I'd like to go to the American people and say, I think American citizens should vote in American elections. I think it should be only American citizens and our invited guests in our country, and our borders should be secure. We should be a sovereign nation. I think we should not have tyrannical government control of our currency or our ability to spend, and end the central bank digital currency. I think we can have common sense measures and reforms and pass those and codify border security and codify our election security and voter ID. And we can do that and have a fight that the American people will be with us on, and we should do that.
Chip, I've only got 1 minute left. Is it just this simple that either modify and go back to the original filibuster now, or preside over a series of impeachments of the president, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. next year? That's really the choice? Modify the filibuster in 26 or preside over impeachments in 27. That's it.
Do you need any other sign than what we're seeing happen in the Commonwealth of Virginia right now, that they will go on offense and they will want to arrest us? They will target us just like Arctic Frost. They will go after the president. They will impeach the president. They will let criminals out on the street. They will reopen the borders. They will allow criminals under our streets from all around the world, and they will decimate this country, allowing people to vote, and there will be no America left. That's your choice.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. God bless.
God bless you, Steve.
Take care. All right. So we're up against the clock here, and When we come back from the top of the hour, because what we're going to discuss in Fake News or Not, everything we've discussed this hour goes right into the trend line we're going to discuss in Fake News or Not. So I'm going to give both Todd and Aaron ample time to respond to both what I had to say and what Congressman Chip Roy had to say when we come back. So let me just reiterate this again. If you're calling your senator, what you need to say to them is this. The choice we have is either return to the original filibuster and make people do actual filibustering and demonstrate they can stand up there for hours, for days, for weeks, demanding illegal aliens get to vote in America, or preside for hours and days and weeks, months of impeachments next year. Those are the choices. There is no middle ground. Those are the choices. That's it. That's in this entire midterm in a nutshell right there. Do your jobs in 26, or you'll be doing their jobs in 27. It can't get any plainer than that. Do not accept long answers. There's not a long answer here. In general, in politics, whenever the explanation is longer than the accusation, you've already lost the argument and or you're being lied to. It's very simple. You want to keep the filibuster in place? Fine. Make them actually do filibustering then. Not just filing objections and indefinitely holding up bills that 80% of the country and 100% of Republicans agree with. Do your jobs. You want to filibuster? Then actually filibuster. And stand up in front of the country and make it known that you think our election shouldn't be secure. Or you'll be standing up in front of the country and defending a whole round of impeachments a year from now. Those are your options. We'll continue in a moment. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'll be Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also find me via the new YouTube channel. Subscribe there, at Deace Show. Well, you can try to find me there, at Deace Show on YouTube. You can also subscribe to our podcast. A lot of you have. Thank you very much. You're the biggest part of our audience. If you've yet to do so, hit that, subscribe button. Or if you're on Apple iTunes, I think it's follow. And you hit those buttons, and it makes sure that every time we do a new show, it's for sure right there in your podcast feed. Thank you if you have. Finally, you can also leave us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have done that for us. Thank you for each and every one of those. And we would love to have tens of thousands more, if for nothing else than our fragile male egos, right? Thank you for each and every one of your 5-star reviews. We appreciate them, and we appreciate our friends over at MD Hearing. You know, we accept insane prices for a lot of things these days, but it doesn't have to be the case when it comes to hearing aids. MD Hearing delivers high-quality, rechargeable digital hearing aids for just $297 a pair. That's over 90% less than traditional clinic hearing aids. MD Hearing, created by a medical professional who saw how his patients needed hearing, but were unable to afford it. So he set out to fix the system. For example, their new Neo model, it fits right inside your ear. It's entirely invisible, or it's nearly invisible. And the Neo XS is their smallest hearing aid ever. No bulky hardware, no learning curve. You can get big savings on these tiny hearing aids by going to shopmdhearing.com. That's shopmdhearing.com. Use the promo code Steve, and you'll get a pair of hearing aids for just $297. You can't beat it. Plus, they're adding a free extra charging case. That's a $100 value just for being a part of the Steve Deace Show. That's shopmdhearing.com. Using the promo code Steve for this special offer. You can't beat it. Shopmdhearing.com. Use the promo code Steve. All right. Before we get to fake news or not, because what we're going to discuss is almost like we planned this. We didn't. but it's a perfect segue to what is next up on the docket. But you guys' thoughts on what I said last hour. Hey, you want me to help you turn out the vote this fall? I'm trying, but you got to help me help you. And you're not making the job of one of the largest evangelical platform shows in America any easier by going to tens of thousands of white evangelicals and say, hey, go vote for the people who can't be bothered to arrest the people invading your churches. I mean, that's not a great pitch. I'll try it. I'm kind of dubious at it being very successful. And then everything you just heard from Chip Roy here in the last segment as well. What do you guys think?
You were appropriately bleak and bitter and pessimistic to lead off the show. And what we have reduced a great statesman like Chip Roy to is only the perfect proof of that. That's a man in full. We are so lucky to have him, but we don't deserve him. Look what we've reduced him to. You know that ridiculous woman on the left who her bit is she talks to people on the right like children.
Oh my goodness.
We've reduced Chip Roy to that, also to our side. The SAVE Act, all it means is that the only people that can vote in American elections are Americans. But that's all apparently that we can digest. I just have to reset what I said yesterday when I watched the video of the what happened at the church. I don't know who to hold in contempt more, our side or theirs. Steve and Chip should not have to talk to you like this. You should all on your own be ready to fight. This is the scene in The Darkest Hour where Winston Churchill goes out onto the train to find out what the people think. And there are housewives who said if the Nazis come here, we'll fight them in the streets with our broom handles. But you guys, you just got stuff to do. While Virginia and Minneapolis promise to steal your children from you in whatever way they see fit. I have so much bile in me. So much. We have to do something, man. Have to. Otherwise, you're not one. You're all kinds of things. You're anonymous screeds, all of your comfortable distractions. For the love of God, do something.
You know, I can understand we're being told on this particular incident or instance, we have to make sure that our prosecutions are airtight because the judges in this jurisdiction are so terrible. We don't want to give anybody a free pass to go and basically commit a conspiracy against rights. By the way, FACE Act, Klan Act, that should be the least of any of these fools' concerns. Conspiracy against rights, to me, seems like it might be a larger deal, and that seems like something that they should be prosecuted for. I'm sympathetic to this. They want to make sure they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed. I guess I should say I would be sympathetic to that if we didn't have the last year of Pam Bondi's show. Because she's not really doing an attorney general job. She's doing a show.
I love the fact you called it that. That is what's going on.
It's the Pam Bondi show auditioning for Fox. If we didn't have all of these, and I know Harmeet Dillon is not Pam Bondi. I like some of the at least aggressive mess. I think Harmeet Dillon gets it. Whether or not she is empowered to do everything that she would like to do, I'm not sure about that. Pam Bondi does not get it at all. Here's what I'm talking about. You might still have to take some time to do a rock-solid case here, an airtight case. But don't go out there and lecture people who have not been seeing what they were promised in terms of perp walks, handcuffs, accountability on any level, and tell them to learn civics lessons. That's not how this works. I think 50% of the messaging that we've heard is okay. The other 50% is trash. Prosecutions are on the way, but we've got all of this. None of us and nobody wants to hear Just wait. That's what we've heard from Kash Patel. Just give me a few more months. Just give me a few more months. That's what we've heard over and over again.
And then they waited a few months and came out and told us Epstein killed himself with a doctored video.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just infuriating, especially when people see on video clear. I mean, it's beyond clear in a way that maybe even January 6th was not. It's beyond, at least the vast majority of it. There's clearly some rowdiness, some rabble-rousing within the Capitol. But it is clearly a violation of multiple federal laws, what they did. And it's on camera, and there are people gloating about it afterwards. People planning it before. Could you at least explain why that is not actionable immediately? Because I haven't heard a good explanation for that. So ultimately, this just comes back to headship. Pam Bondi, if she's not going to do her job, the person who is over her needs to find somebody else who is capable.
Correct.
And that needed to happen 4, 5, 6 months ago, and I'm being generous at that.
It should happen the day after the Epstein binder stunt with the influencers, the very next day.
This has just gone on way too long.
Should realize we hired the Omarosa of attorney generals who made a terrible mistake here, pull the plug, and we'll start all over.
If we're sitting here in April and May, and we're asking the question, hey, you remember that time Don Lemon walked into a church with a bunch of commies? Guys. Nope. It's just, you can't not deliver on this. And it has to be delivered fast.
Well, this entire conversation we've just had so far to start this show is unintentional, yet perfect segue to what's coming next. To the point you guys would think we scripted this out, but we didn't.
Agreed.
Okay. So this week, the return of fake news or not. And I want to go to this graphic. This is Gallup's trend line of data. This goes back over 30 years. All right. Party identification. And it's also been this is one of the gold standard polling trends of America. If you want to pretty much get an idea of where things are going to go in the next election cycle, this is pretty close to gospel. All right. So this data goes back 35 years. As you can see, look at what has happened right around, if you look at 2008. 2008. What happened in 2008? I thought we elected Hope and Change. Right, that would be about where that line is there between 25 and 2010, where the dip began exactly for no party, about 2008. That was TARP. And I remember pollster Scott Rasmussen telling me at the time, this was the single most unpopular piece of legislation he'd ever polled in his entire career. That was too big to fail. That was what gave birth eventually to the Tea Party. All right. So starting with TARP in 2008, okay, see where the trend line has gone in terms of whether people want to be identified as Republicans or Democrats. And it has skyrocketed. And now we have an all-time high. Since we started measuring this 35 years ago, 45% of Americans decline to be identified as either a Republican or Democrat and instead want to be known as independents. And Republicans and Democrats are currently tied at 27% apiece. Is this chart, before we get into specifics, is this chart fake news or not?
It's not fake news.
It's not. Tell me why.
For everything I just said about our excuses, it's not fake news, and it's a terrible, terrible sign. I think the reaction a lot of people will have is, well, those two parties obviously suck. People want an alternative. Guys, this is a republic if you can keep it. The parties are that way because you make that choice and you think you're above it all. You're better than that. We're not like them. Well, if I pulled all those people who are amongst that people skyrocketing and what they really care about, I guarantee you it's a lot of idols and then spacebar, 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 the degree to which they actually pay attention to politics. And that is people escaping. Those aren't citizens just saying, I am above this fray. If you're saying that, you're lying to yourself. The people that Steve says we have to vote for now, and he's right. He's right about that to some extent, but it's because of this.
I want everybody. Can I just lobby a protest against my own remarks? I hate saying that.
Yeah, I know.
It goes against every fiber of my ego being. But I have to. I have to look at causes and things greater than my own. How much of my own bile am I willing to swallow? So I just want to. I want everybody again to know how much I hate the fact that I think that.
It's because of this. I know. I would bet my house on it. All those people, most of those people labeling themselves as independent, are the least involved, the least aware of what is going on. Addicted. I just want my stuff. I just want to be left alone. I don't want any accountability. I've got more respect in so many ways for the demons on the left than you people who make up those independents. Good grief. If you do tactically, election to election, whatever. But as an identity, at this time, what they did to us in COVID, what they did to us with transing the kids, what they're doing to you in church in Minneapolis, I don't know. I've said I don't know how else to say it. You're the problem. The people are the problem. The ones who think everybody else is just too involved, too serious. I don't like your tone. Yada yada yada. You people are weak and distracted and not deserving of this country of America, and you're not going to have it any longer, and your children are going to be succumb to a Holocaust, and it's going to be your fault. But at least you get to call yourself an independent.
I had almost the exact same read on this as Todd did. Have you ever heard one human being describe another as, quote, a stupid person's idea of a smart person? That is one of the most dangerous and, dare I say, dumb things that another person could say about another human being, because there's at least a 50% chance the human being saying that about another human being is the dumbest person of them all. Because there's a 50% chance that yes or no proposition is no, they're not the dumbest person, or not the dumb person's idea of a smart person. I thought of that when I saw this number here, because I had the same read that Todd had. Most people leave these parties because they believe in themselves as being above it all. No, this chart is not fake news, because the people, by and large, in this country are fake news, unfortunately. Amen. So the chart is not fake news because the people are fake news. And it has everything to do with the American tradition now of outsourcing absolutely everything. This belief that everything must be outsourced, that it's not incumbent upon me to do anything at all. All I have to do is vote. But those guys, the red and blue over there, they're not doing their jobs, so it's not, and nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to leave. That's a death knell right there. If and only if our read on this and why the rise in independence is even, I think, 60 to 70% correct. That's just a death knell. Because it speaks to motivations more than it does political affiliation.
Okay. So then, what responsibilities, I don't really care what the standing of the Democratic Party is, other than the standing defeat. What responsibility does the Republican Party have for this trend line?
The Republican Party voter has as much as the party itself. If we're going to play that game, the Republican Party primary voter has as much to blame as the party itself.
So you're kind of echoing Jesse Kelly's take that you can
Correct.
blame much of America's problems on the Republican primary voter? I don't necessarily disagree with them on that, but continue on. Go ahead, yes.
That's my reaction. So I think if we're going to go down that road, then it's ultimately in our system of government, it is incumbent upon a moral and religious people. So yes, when you have, it's a symbiotic relationship. You're going to have a crappy party if the process is not taken seriously by enough people, a moral and religious people, or a lack of moral and religious people. So ultimately, the buck stops with the people. So it's a symbiotic relationship. I'm not going to say the Republican Party apparatus at all has no blame, but ultimately, in our system of government, the buck stops with us.
I have plenty of contempt for the establishment as well, but you talk all the time about human nature, what it is. When the Republican apparatus is absolutely certain they will get shanked by the left and its minions and the press, and are far less likely when that happens to have people even aware of what's going on the right, why wouldn't their default, like a dog, like Bruce Springsteen, like a dog who's been kicked too much, why wouldn't their default ultimately be, it's weakness, it's pathetic, I don't respect it, but yes, human nature is that they're going to default to holding us in contempt, manipulating us because they know they can, just to survive another day and get theirs. We've all created this together. And this is because the left is full of believers and we are not. And which is why I have the reaction to what happened in that church. Even though as a Catholic, I absolutely want to go to war on behalf of that third church for what it apparently believes theologically, but faith without works is dead, and our works are dead over and over and over again.
So I had a conversation yesterday that I think, just yesterday, that I think adds some local color credibility to what you two are saying. So I talked yesterday with a guy I met recently, well-to-do, successful. Won't say what he's been successful in or where he wants to run, because then it would out him, and I don't have permission to do that quite yet. Okay, but he's getting ready to run, and he can self-fund a lot of his campaign if he wants to. He's getting ready to run in his state Senate against an entrenched Republican. She's, I guess, not quite Charles Grassley advanced in years, but she's advanced in years. And let's just say, despite the fact it's a very red state, the incumbent Republican has not been all that eager to actually do the stuff that Trump voters want in a very red state. And so he's going to run and challenge her in the primary. And he called me and, because we have a mutual friend, and said, hey, you know what? Deace has a lot of experience in this arena. Give him a call. And even if he knows nothing about your district, there's some general things he can tell you that would help. And one of the things I said to him was, to beat her, you're going to need a higher turnout primary. And I said, if you haven't looked at the numbers yet, your mind's going to be blown by how few people have been voting in your Senate district primary all of these years.
Yep.
And he stopped me, goes, Steve, it's funny you should say that, because I just looked at those numbers. And he told me there's over 100,000 registered voters in that district. And routinely fewer than 10,000 were showing up to vote in the state Senate primary in that district. And I said, see, what the system wants you to think is that if we have the conservatives, the upstarts, the MAGA people, the Christian right, whatever you want to call us, that we need low turnout because our issues don't have broad appeal and our thoughts don't have broad appeal. So we need low turnout in order to win these things. The opposite is true. If the same people who have shown up over and over again for Republican primaries, if they show up, you're losing. You need more people to show up. You need people who don't typically vote in primaries to show up. And I walked through several races that I was involved in and or covered around the country where I learned this. To me, I was not involved in that race because I didn't think Dave Bragg could win. And ironically, he was the only one that did win. So I looked very closely at his race. And his race was unique in that turnout in his primary went up when turnout in all the other primaries that we lost went down. Well, then you think, well, maybe it's, Virginia, because he beat Eric Cantor, the House Majority Leader at the time. And Virginia has open primary, so maybe Democrats crossed over to embarrass the Republican, leadership fella. And instead what we saw is the reddest precincts, the redder the precinct, the higher the turnout for Dave Brat. Meaning that his name ID and message penetrated to a Republican-based voter to motivate them to vote in ways they did not. What was the highest turnout Iowa caucus we've ever had? The year that Trump and Ted Cruz were basically running completely different from the messaging of the entire rest of the Republican Party, and there were 23 candidates. So that just kind of reinforces what you guys are talking about, is that the same blue hairs from the Rotary Club and the nursing homes have been doing this for decades, voting for the same people over and over again. And this also goes back to what I said last hour about Gen X. We have to show up now. We're the ones with families that are growing up and getting out into the real world. We're launching our kids. We're now hosting our grandchildren. We were the ones that voted. We're the reason Trump's in the White House right now. He won Gen X by 11 points, did no better than a tie with every other generation. So we're the ones that now have to start showing up for these kinds of primaries. And now millennials like Aaron, you guys are starting to get married, have your own families now. I'd put you in that camp too. We are the ones with the most skin in the game right now. We're the ones that are the generations largely living for something more than ourselves. Or at least doing our best to. Which means we got to start showing up for these primaries and stop letting the same people that win over and over again that got us into this mess win over and over again. But what do you think it means that I said to this gentleman yesterday, who's from a deep red state, what you need is higher turnout? What do you think that means? What it means is not enough of our people have been showing up. That's what it means. Thoughts on that?
Isaiah 1, where would you yet be struck? Which is what I was trying to address. What else is it going to take? And how powerful are your idols? We've had everything we thought we would need. We've done this thought exercise before 2020. What would you think people would have been thinking and how would they have been acting if X, Y, and Z happened? And and then they would have been the people on the subway in the darkest hour. That's what we've done this. We've talked about it, yet it didn't happen. So the question is, why? All the answers are biblically bad. There's nothing new under the sun on this front. We like our own feces. We like playing in our diaper. All the cautionary tales about adults who are children, but in the bad way. There's a good way in the Bible you're supposed to be like a child, and there's a really bad way. Which one do you think we are betting the house on these days? The bad one. We don't want to adult. We just don't. Not showing up is just... You show that people resent that Isaiah 1 passage I read all the time. Oh, you're too serious. Which is why, Steve, we game plan this out with you running for governor. Heck, I couldn't even get elected to a school board in rural red Iowa. Because even people who on a blind taste test, the men who would agree with us, they just like, well, yeah, but your tone, can't you be nice? No, they're transing the kids. I can't.
Ownership is a powerful motivating force when you take ownership of something, in something. Are the people currently stating that you will own nothing and you'll like it, are they associated with the good guys or the bad guys right now? Mostly the bad guys. Unfortunately, in too many areas of great import, we have zero inclination of ownership in. And on too many areas of absolutely no metaphysical or eternal value, we have a lot of ownership. A lot of ownership. And this is what Todd is talking about with the idolatry. You want to hear something really convicting? Maybe this is unfair, so I'm just going to say it. You guys can check it if you want. If you get more of a pit in your stomach watching an important game for your favorite football team or favorite competition, more than a pit in your stomach thinking about how your children will navigate a world in which they can trans other children, or where they might own nothing, or they'll navigate the dystopian world that the Yuval Noah Hararis will again spell out for us this week in Davos. If you get more of a pit in your stomach from something that is really inconsequential and fleeting and temporary than you do thinking about the future, might I suggest that your ownership priorities are way out of whack.
Correct.
Aaron,
This is what I'm talking about here when it comes to the overall population outsourcing everything. When you outsource something, guess what you get rid of as well? Your ownership stake in that thing. Now, the best of us will have great ownership in things that are important, things that are being built. Not everybody has that, mind you, and there are a lot of factors for that. Idolatry might be the biggest one. But at the best of times, we will take ownership in things that are important. Our families, those are good things. But even those of us who take ownership for our families, unquestionably important things, our churches, we still have this tendency to outsource the country, our communities. That has to change. And maybe one of the first signs of revival in this country is that very phenomenon changing. So, depressing conversation.
It's the only one to have right now.
But it's an adult conversation, and everything we're talking about, again, I say this now, boomers are exiting. We are entering Act 3. And so our generation's charge is we have to finish our race, and we have to hold the line. That's what we have to do. Good buddy of mine just had an opportunity to share the gospel in Davos, of all places. Let's find out what that was like next.
The Steve Deace Show.
So I know a lot of you guys, you're trying to maintain that New Year's resolution to get healthier, get more active, get more fit, but muscle atrophy, that achiness, that soreness, stiffness, those pains working against you. That's why you want to look at real preventative health so that you can make sure you can maintain those gains, right? Because your body will fight back against you at first, but then once your body sees that you know how to take care of it, then your body is going to love it. So one of the things you want to look into, a company like Chirp, whether it's trigger point rollers, and if you don't know what those are, you need to know, okay? They have those there, okay? Whether it's the mini rolling power massager, and I take that with me now when I go on the road from Chirp, or it is their decompression and massage table that they call the Contour, all right? Providing professional grade relief, comfort right there of your own home, spinal decompression, soothing massage, relaxing heat to ease pressure, loosen stiff muscles, relieve soreness with your personalized presets. These are the kinds of things that you can do now with stuff that works, devices that actually work. I've done a couple of them. Aaron has as well. Devices that actually work to make sure that your body recovers so you can keep going and keep getting healthier. All right. So go to gochirp.com/Steve. Check out their full menu of options that they have available there, including the Chirp Contour. That's gochirp.com/Steve. Also, every product is FSA, HSA, that's Health Savings Account, eligible. All right, so relief can be more affordable and accessible than ever before. GoChirp.com/Steve, like a birdie chirp, CHIRP, GoChirp.com/Steve. And finally, today, we welcome back a good friend of mine and of the show, Dr. Jeremiah Johnston from Prestonwood Baptist there in Dallas. But he is not in the Big D. He's in another Big D, Davos, as we speak, because he got to defend the gospel before the World Economic Forum yesterday. And I got to tell you, brother, I cannot wait to hear how this went. So good to see you, my friend. And the floor is yours.
Steve, it's great to be with you and your audience. I'm as blown away as you are that the opportunity, and I want to explain what it is here in Davos, where I've been the last 2 days, there is what's called USA House. The different countries have different houses where they bring all of their businesses and economic interests, and things are negotiated. Global things happen here. And I've heard everything I've heard about Davos before arriving was negative, to be honest with you. And yet I was asked, because of my work with Christian Thinker Society, doing what you said, being an apologetics guy, defending the truths of Christianity, I was asked to come and kick off the WEF at literally the USA House and bring all of the artifacts related to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And the room was full of media. It was standing room to get into the facility. And I, for an hour, Steve, proclaimed the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the truth of the resurrection, the truth of the evidence of how our sins can be forgiven. And this is at the World Economic Forum. Can you believe it?
That is absolutely incredible. All right, so you mentioned the crowd. Set the scene. Is it just you and you know the reasons and you know for the hope that you have? Were you there surrounded by a team? Did you guys tag team your presentation? Lay out how it went for us.
How it works at Davos, there's one panel after another. There's an AI panel. There was a space panel right before me. The Ambassador Gingrich came in right after me. And so at USA House, there's just different panels for different subject matters. And in my panel, which was called Did God Take the First Selfie?, I was interviewed by Gillian Tett. She is the provost, or as we say in England, the provost of King's College, Cambridge University. She's also on the editorial board of Financial Times. And so she moderated a discussion with me for the entire hour, but then opened it up for questions from the floor where other media asked me questions. And this has been reported on, so it's global. I was interviewed also by Swiss national television here in Switzerland. Germany has covered it. These are countries that are essentially atheistic or growing in, as you know, Muslim belief. And so to have the gospel proclaimed at this global stage, there's 80 heads of state here, 80 different countries with heads of states. The secretary, of course, Trump, will be speaking here later this week. There's a buzz about that right now. But what kicked off the forum, the World Economic Forum, was my opportunity to talk about the event horizon. And this was the key. I kicked it off this way. What is the event horizon of free enterprise? Where do we get this notion of loving our enemies, of forgiving debts, of having sins forgiven, of actually turning the other cheek and not being vengeful? I mean, you talk about a crowd that needs it, because it's either heads of state or billionaires that are here at WEF doing something or negotiating things. And so those ideas, they don't come from Socrates, they don't come from Marxism or Lenin. Those ideas that are the building blocks of Western civilization came from a person. His name is Jesus, and the event horizon of Western civilization is the fact of the physical bodily resurrection of Jesus. And I just stopped talking when I said that to Jillian. It was great.
What was the reactions that you received throughout your presentation to that, or maybe some other statements or claims and defenses of the gospel you made?
You can imagine, Steve, the reactions have been across the gamut. Today, I had a really popular DJ. I can't remember his name, and then a guy who's a king of fashion came to my session, and there's so much hope. They love the fusion, the fact that Christianity, unlike any of the other false religions, is so well evidenced, that we have an evidence-based belief. Many of them had never heard this before. And so there was not a spirit of negativity towards me. There was an openness of, I want to hear you again on this, or their questions were excellent. There's hope here. And so don't believe everything you hear about WEF. Come here, be part of the solution as far as sharing the gospel. Come be truthful. But do you want to know the organizer? And Mr. Strombach, who organizes with the State Department, the White House. So the gentleman who brought me in is the gentleman who's bringing Trump in, and the White House, State Department, et cetera. He told me this, and Steve, this is why your show is so important. This is why this talk is so important. Do you know who he's had the biggest challenge with? This guy brings everybody to WEF. I mean, all you have to do is Google him. And he said, timid Christians, have been the most difficult group to work with. Christian leaders who are too afraid to come to the World Economic Forum and talk about our faith.
I mean, I can see, hey, come here and be a mascot for us attempting to conquer your culture. I mean, I can see not wanting to be a part of that, right? Not wanting to be a simp, not wanting that.
Right.
But being invited specifically to this place to defend the gospel, that I don't understand. Like, I get why members of my audience are concerned when, like, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp shows up there to do business deals. I get why they're concerned about it. Yeah,
sure.
All right, because who are we really doing business with, and what are the terms of said deal, right? I would assume it's not necessarily in our direction. But in your case, you're being offered an opportunity to invade the place. And that's really what you were offered. Hey, we're going to give you a platform to come here and invade us. Why, as a believer, would you not take that opportunity?
And I was given no restrictions. I was able to say whatever I wanted. So I brought artifacts with me. I brought our shroud replica with me. I brought coins with me that we've acquired from the first century that, again, give evidence. And I wanted to really explain the fact that the Christian worldview is the king of all worldviews. There's really not that many worldviews. It's secular humanism. It's law of the jungle. And these are people with all the money in the world, and they're empty. They're lost. And that's when I took the moment to say, what is the purpose of life? And the purpose is I actually said in the session at the USA House, I said, I'm bringing all the receipts of how much God loves you through his son, Jesus Christ. And the reaction, they were staring at me as if they had never heard this before. That's my reaction as the speaker, as the one being interviewed, but there was hope. And these people need the gospel, Steve. So I'm not afraid, and I didn't hold back. And you can actually watch it. You can go to the USA House and watch my entire presentation and judge for yourself. But you can see that I kept coming back to the cut and thrust that the event horizon of free enterprise, what everybody loves here at WEF, the horizon of that, the building blocks is the Judeo-Christian worldview, specifically the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Without it, nothing else. This worldview doesn't exist. We kill each other. It's law of the jungle.
What was the most, or some of the most interesting questions that you received? Maybe one you found challenging, one you did not anticipate in either direction.
Yeah, this is interesting. You know, I have debates, as you know. I have many scholarly discussions. The questions were so, and I want to be careful because you have a huge audience, Steve. The questions were so elemental.
I was going to say simple, right?
Yeah, just like what? Oh, Jesus. Yes, the Bible. Yeah, the resurrection, the crucifixion. This is the gospel. So where I could split end about, the physicists that I've met with on the shroud, or my expertise in Jewish burial traditions, or my expertise in manuscript tradition, these questions were much more pedestrian, but they were holding on to every word. And it gave me, again, a heart for these people that have likely never had anyone actually share the gospel. And boom, there I was doing it by God's grace. And so to God be the glory for all of it. It's amazing what God can do. And God gave me a verse as I left. I share this with my children. 1 Samuel 3, it says that the word of the Lord was rare in those days. And I just thought, those are the times we're living in. The word of the Lord is rare, and especially in this climate here in Davos. And yet Samuel said, here I am. And that's what I said to the Lord. I just said, Lord, I'm here. I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to flinch. And I'm not going to hold back from sharing truth, that this is the truth. There is not another alternative. This is the truth. And I spelled truth, Jesus. I said that in the forum as well. And so my phone's been blowing up from global media that want to hear more about this. I mean, Europe is essentially an atheistic continent now. And I mean, I'm getting emails now of German headlines of the resurrection. I mean, that's coming out of the World Economic Forum. And I think people are realizing that God does love humanity. And I brought the receipts to show that. And by just sharing the gospel, Stephen, this is what any of us can do who's watching right now your program. You don't have to come to Davos to do that. You should be willing to share it with anyone God brings into your path. But I made a commitment 16 years ago that I would be ready for moments like these, and I wouldn't hesitate and I wouldn't flinch.
What was the aftermath like? I mean, were you permitted to talk to the crowd, or because of security to get you out of there? How did that go?
Yeah. So, well, they had to usher me out because the ambassador came right in. So my interviews began there, and then there was an after event at a penthouse of the person who's organizing it, Trump being here. So the conversations continued in this hotel room with other VIP type people who if I said their name, you would recognize them. And I just did a part 2 of my session, brought the shroud out, brought all the artifacts out, brought out my crucifixion nail that's from the 1st century. It's not a replica, it's an actual crucifixion nail from the Roman period under Pontius Pilate. So I've taken every opportunity, whether it be on that global stage or in the back rooms, in the hallways, in the lobbies of the hotel, to just continue to answer questions. People are stopping me there's only one road in and out of Davos. It's a very odd place. And there's 80,000 people here right now. So there's people everywhere, conversations happening, Meta's there, Amazon's there, AI, crypto guys I met, all of them, fashion people, as I already mentioned. But the conversation is Jesus. The conversation is, wait a minute, without him, we destroy ourselves. We need the gospel. We need our sins forgiven, and we need to live on purpose, on mission. And that's my message. And that message is what I'll share next week at the University of Kentucky. I'll share that in a Bible study. I will share that at the dinner table with my 5 children, and I will share it here at WEF in Davos.
Finally, what's your takeaway from this? What did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned that Christianity, the truth, is what you say all the time. It's a lion, and you just need to let it loose. You don't have to defend it. But I did take a page out of Pascal. How we present the truth is important. Okay. Pascal died when he's 39 years of age, and he said that we should love people enough to present the truth of the gospel so that men and women want it to be true, and then show them that it is. And I want to tell you that I was able to present it under the power of the Holy Spirit in a way where I sensed people wanting it to be true, Steve. And then okay, I want this to be true, what you're telling me. Now show me, how do I know Jesus? And I spoke twice again today. And that was the subject matter. How do you have your sins forgiven? By an act of faith in the facts of the gospel, in the person of Jesus, and trusting in Jesus, period. Transferring your trust from trying to save yourself. All your money in the world can't forgive your sins. It's already been paid for, and it came at a great price. That was the exact word I gave. And so what I learned from it is, how can I keep making truth attractive so people want it to be true, and then show them that it is?
Incredible, brother. What an incredible opportunity, my friend. Well done.
Well,
Good and faithful servant.
I give
stuff
God
right
all the glory, and I thank you for your prayers. You've been praying for me for a long time for this. So you're the first show I've talked about just to give so I'm giving real-time feedback from Switzerland here. I'm 7 hours ahead of you, just sharing, and it's an exciting thing. And I just praise God for what he's doing and going to continue to. Seeds of the gospel have been planted here. They're going to go all over the world.
Amen. Well, keep us posted, my friend. Safe travels back home. All right. God bless you.
All right, my man. Blessings. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, as we close this thing out, we had 2 minutes left. Your thoughts on that?
God bless Jeremiah. Every single civilization, every single culture are going to have their elites. It's just it. That's just a metaphysical fact. You better hope those elites are motivated by something or grounded by something that is good, true, and beautiful, or as close to adjacent to that as possible. The question then becomes, who will evangelize the elites? And I really appreciate Jeremiah for taking that call and running with it. So if we can change elite culture for the better, that might be one of the, in whatever small way or major way that this shakes out, that could be one of the biggest turning points in the history of Western civilization. Because our elite class, I don't know if you looked around recently, it needs some changing.
And in terms of his discipline, Jeremiah is an elite. He's an expert on this, but that's not the most important thing about this. And this is perfectly providential that he's part of this show. This has been a seamless garment, front to back, and we didn't intend it that way, but God's working again. Jeremiah just knows, expert or not, I was bought at a high price. Here I am, Lord, send me. Yes, send me to Nineveh. That's where he just went, because that's what Davos is. And he went. No excuses, not drowning himself in comfort. That's the call. If you call yourself a Christian, That's the call. And most of us are lying to ourselves about that. And Jeremiah won't let you. He won't let Davos. He won't let anybody. And most importantly, he won't let himself.
I wonder, I mean, Schwab is, in his 80s? He just got kind of defrocked. So yeah, the previous generation that specifically was hostile to Christianity and formed organizations like this in response to it. But you have a newer generation coming in that's ignorant of a lot of this. Maybe the harvest is more plentiful there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're going to stick around and record overtime for subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.